The butt tubes. It was a dark and stormy night, and Sarah was home alone. The wind howled outside, and the rain pounded against the windows, making her feel trapped and isolated. She had always been afraid of the dark, but she had never been more terrified than she was now. She heard a strange noise coming from the bathroom. It sounded like something was moving in the pipes. Sarah's heart was pounding as she slowly walked to the bathroom. She hesitated before reaching for the doorknob, her hand shaking with fear. She slowly opened the door, and the first thing she noticed was the smell. It was a putrid, rotting smell that made her want to gag. But it was the noise that truly terrified her. It was coming from the pipes. She crept closer to the sink, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. But there was nothing out of the ordinary, just the sound of something moving in the pipes. She decided to investigate further and opened the cabinet under the sink. That's when she saw it. The pipes were moving. And they were moving in a way that was not natural. They were wriggling as if they were alive. Sarah could see the metal bulging and twisting, and she could hear the sound of something scratching and clawing from inside. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She reached out to touch the pipes, but as soon as her hand came close, they lunged at her. Sarah screamed and stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. She could see the pipes wriggling out of the cabinet, taking on a life of their own. They were long and thin, like tubes, and they had mouths at one end. They were the butt tubes. Sarah's mind was racing as she realized that the butt tubes were everywhere. They were coming out of the walls, the floor, and even the ceiling. They were chasing her, and they were getting closer. She could see their mouths opening and closing, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. She could hear their voices, a chorus of guttural growls that seemed to be saying, "We want you. We need you." Sarah knew that she had to fight back. She grabbed a broom and began to swing it at the butt tubes. She managed to hit a few, but they kept coming. She could feel their teeth sinking into her skin, tearing her flesh. She could see the blood pouring from her wounds, mixing with the rainwater that was flooding the house. She ran through the house, trying to find a way out, but the butt tubes were everywhere. They were blocking her path, their mouths opening wide to swallow her whole. She could feel their cold, slimy bodies sliding against her skin, their voices growing louder and more insistent. "We will always be with you. We will always be a part of you. We are the butt tubes." Sarah could feel her strength failing her, her vision growing blurry. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, her breath coming in short gasps. She knew that she had to get out of the house, but the butt tubes were blocking her way. In a last-ditch effort, Sarah ran to the front door and managed to open it. She ran out into the storm, but the butt tubes were still following her. She could see them emerging from the ground, their mouths wide open, ready to claim her as their own. She could hear their voices, a chorus of screams that seemed to be saying, "You can't escape us. We will always be with you. We are the butt tubes." Sarah ran and never looked back. She could feel their cold, slimy fingers reaching out to grab her, their voices growing louder and more insistent. "We will always be with you. We will always be a part of you." She stumbled through the streets, her clothes torn and bloodied, her body covered in bruises and bite marks. Her mind was in a state of shock, and she could hardly remember how she had escaped the house. All she could think about was the butt tubes and the fear that they would find her again. She stumbled into a police station, her body convulsing with fear, her mind barely able to form coherent sentences. The officers took her in, but when they went to investigate the house, they found nothing but an empty, abandoned building, with no sign of the butt tubes. Sarah was put in a mental institution, her mind too traumatized to function normally. She spent the rest of her life in a state of constant fear, always looking over her shoulder, convinced that the butt tubes were coming for her. And even though they were never found, she knew that they were still out there, waiting for their next victim. They were the butt tubes, and they would always be with her, a part of her, forever.